I was to summarize the story in as few words as possible, I would say something like this. You created Dogecoin intending satire and perhaps as an experiment, and now it's a top 40 cryptocurrency valued in total at $1 billion.
Yeah, that's correct. a lot of stuff kind of happened in the middle, but yeah, that's correct.
Coloring Crypto.
Welcome to Coloring Crypto. This is your host, Gabe Colors. It's an ambitious task to illuminate the blockchain. Never ending. You know, one of the best ways to learn something new is to deconstruct and simplify it to its core concepts by examining an exception to the rule. If you want to learn basketball, you don't study Michael Jordan. You study someone who's overachieved despite their circumstances. An outlier. The best example of an outlier in the cryptocurrency space is Dogecoin. This is part 2 with Jackson Palmer, the creator. And I asked him where, when, and how did this happen?
So, yeah, it was late 2013. I'd had an interesting year, just a busy year back home in Australia. And so I was sitting in Sydney, Australia, and I'd heard of cryptocurrency before and Bitcoin, many years before that, but had found that when I tried to download the client, our internet access in Australia at the time wasn't very good. So syncing a blockchain was kind of off the table, and I just put it away. But later in 2013, a coworker where I was working as a marketer back then, kind of was talking to me a lot about Litecoin. And I was like, that might be related to this Bitcoin thing, because Litecoin at the time was going through a price increase similar to what it's seen since then. I think it was around $60 or something. And so I was like, I should check this thing out. And what I found very quickly is that in Australia in 2013, it was prohibitively difficult to try and buy cryptocurrency, with a credit card or with a PayPal account or anything like that. It was very hard. So I ended up, I think, buying my first cryptocurrency ever through first buying Second Life. You know that game, that Linden Labs game, Second Life. I bought some Linden bucks and then I bought that with PayPal, and then I exchanged those Linden bucks, it was like $50 worth, for Feathercoin, actually, which was a derivative of Litecoin. And that was back in the days when BTCE was kind of like the exchange that people used. And so I for a while, my first kind of foray into cryptocurrency was holding a few Feathercoin in 2013. And I started getting that kind of like addictive kind of cryptocurrency vibe that you get, where you're kind of checking the price every day and seeing, whether your $50 investment has gone up or down. And yeah, I just noticed that on CoinMarketCap, which was around back then, coinmarketcap.com, that every couple of weeks a new coin would pop up on the page, and all of a sudden it would appear to essentially print money out of nowhere. It would be whatever coin. And so it was late November 2013, and at that point I'd actually already decided that I was going to move to the US, just to be kind of closer to the technology industry. A lot of people think I moved to America because of Dogecoin, but I didn't. And I'd already made that decision, and I just got home one day and sat down with a beer and was checking the prices. But then in the tab next to it, I had an article that was published from Gawker by Adrian Chen that was about the Doge meme being kind of the pure meme, like it's the best meme, in that you kind of can't take the Doge meme and co-opt it for some kind of nefarious purpose. It's a pure meme. And the tabs were literally right next to one another. Like the first tab was Doge is the best meme, and the second tab was CoinMarketCap, and so the words kind of spelled themselves out to me in my browser tabs, and I was just like, Dogecoin, that'd be hilarious. So, back then I was, I think I posted it on Tumblr. Actually, I had a Tumblr blog, and I posted, going to invest in Dogecoin. I think it's the next big thing, and that then got syndicated to my Twitter account, where I had practically no followers at the time, but after I posted it, I thought, you know what, just in case, I'm a domain hoarder, so I buy as many domains as I can, whatever I think of. And so I went ahead and purchased Dogecoin.com and just put up a quick image that I made in Photoshop of the Doge meme with like a golden coin over it. And I put the image up on the website and kind of went away and didn't think about it. I went to sleep and then woke up and found kind of my Twitter afire with people saying, this is amazing, you should make this, you should make it into a real thing. And that's kind of where Dogecoin was born. Okay,
so literally you're looking at CoinMarketCap, you're at that point owning Feathercoin, and you got the Gawker article up. And was it like that night?
I think remembering back to the timeline, I think I posted it, and then it might have been a couple days. I honestly would have to... That would require some investigative work. But what happened was that I posted it kind of as a joke on Twitter. And when that happened, I kind of realized that kind of how ridiculous cryptocurrency is. And I don't mean that in necessarily a bad way, but I mean in the way that something was kind of popping up on CoinMarketCap every day. There was like unobtainium and like there was another one called hobo nickels. Like these were literally the things that were popping up and having $1 million back then market caps, and I was just shocked at that. And so I think after I did the initial tweet, I was like, you know what, like this is a funny joke, and I think that this whole thing's kind of ridiculous. So I forget when I bought the domain, but the website I changed it slightly to say it is a parody cryptocurrency favored by Shiba Inus worldwide. And Shiba Inu is the breed of dog. And so I posted that, and somebody shared the Dogecoin.com URL on IRC or something like that, which is very popular with the crypto scene. And I kind of randomly got reached out to by this guy, Billy, from up in Portland, who was saying, hey, I've been tooling around with cryptocurrency and the Bitcoin core code, and I realized that you can change the font to Comic Sans, which is the font that is commonly associated with the Doge meme. He's like, we should make this a thing. And he posted a little screenshot of what he'd done so far, which is he'd replaced the image. He'd put the image that I'd created into the Dogecoin client and changed the font to Comic Sans. And I said, you know what? Why not? Just as a joke. Because, I've always been very technical and code myself. And I was like, you know what? I should probably dive in a lot deeper and understand how this stuff works. And so over the next couple of days, it would have been honestly maybe 3 to 5 days, he and I kind of went back and forth on like a Google chat discussing what should the money supply be, what should the block rewards be, and I was like, make them random just for the hell of it. And we were just screwing around and trying, and at the same time both learning how cryptocurrency works. Like, neither of us really were like that experienced in it, and we weren't like super set up miners with pools or anything like that. And so we just eventually got the binaries, the building for the software, so you could run it. We could only get it to build on Windows. All the other builds failed. But we published the Windows exe file on the website and just posted the coin to Bitcoin Talks announcements forum saying, hey, you can now use the thing.
So explain that piece of it where, it sounds like you guys took existing code, and I've read the internet's got very sort of, one webpage says you guys took the Bitcoin code, one says you took the Litecoin code, another Wikipedia, I think, says a different thing. But even the concept, like, were you even aware that this was as open source and you could copy the code of these algorithms to create your own coin at the time?
Yeah, I was aware that it was open source. I'd been an open source developer for many years, so I was aware it was on GitHub. And what I didn't understand was how easy it was to kind of fork and clone it. And when I say easy, like obviously it was a little bit tedious compared to how simple it is these days, but I wasn't aware that really, like, to make an altcoin, alternative coin, it's really just a matter of changing a few kind of what we called magic numbers in the code, which then has this huge cascading effect on the rest of the software. So there's a few variables you can change, like total money supply, the block reward schedule, like the block time, and, in the case of Dogecoin, the hashing algorithm, which we used script, which is what Litecoin also uses. But I believe that we actually forked because we wanted the random block rewards, I believe we forked from something called Lotto Coin, or I don't know if we actually forked from it. I think we literally just copy-pasted code from one GitHub repo into another. And that's what you can do with Bitcoin, actually, because it's mostly running the same code everywhere. You can kind of steal little chunks from different places. And so we stole the random block rewards from this other coin called either Lucky Coin or Lotto Coin that would have random block rewards up to a certain point, and pasted it in, I think, into the Litecoin code, which was a script. Then tried to build the thing. And the build is funny because, like, you literally hit the build button and you just wait, and it'll, like, spin for, like, an hour, and then oftentimes it'll be like, build failed, and you're like, oh, crap. And so, like, it took a long time to get that working and get the Windows release out.
Considering the relative success that Dogecoin is still around today, it's a relatively very strong coin. Like, do you think that you, like, how did you pick those variables?
Yeah,
and did you just get lucky that it worked?
What we tried to do was kind of make those magic numbers or variables as ridiculous as possible in a way that we thought would actually kill the thing sooner rather than later, because we didn't want it to be this long-lasting joke. So Billy and I were both very much aware of the fact that it was a joke. Billy especially, he was saying, look, I don't want this thing to come off as a scam, right? Because you have to remember, people at the time were creating these pump and dump cryptocurrencies, where they'd pre-mine them, they'd put it out there, and then they'd sell it all once it hit an exchange. And we were very, very aware of the fact that, look, Dogecoin is kind of taking a jab at the fact that there's so many of these scam coins out there. And the last thing we want to happen is for Dogecoin to become that, right? To become the butt of the joke. And so, an example of that is the random block rewards. The assumption there being that it's absurd like Doge, but also it would probably deter serious miners because, there's a chance, when it first started, I think it was a chance you could get either somewhere between 1 and 1 million Dogecoin. So, like, there was a huge risk of spending a bunch of electricity mining the thing and getting, literally a fraction of a penny for your troubles.
Wait, so the randomness affected every single miner mining it?
Exactly. So, yeah, so Dogecoin has 1 minute block times, which is, Bitcoin is 10 minutes. So again, we sped everything up, and we made it so that every 1 minute when a block was mined, the miner would get a random block reward. Whereas with Bitcoin, it's a fixed schedule. The same with Litecoin, right? It's a fixed schedule that goes down over time. With us, it was like, let's just randomly give them somewhere between 0 and whatever. And then that had a schedule of its own. But we thought, that'll probably make it more of a joke coin because it'll deter people from mining it long term because it's, obviously not something you can predict. Important to note, those block rewards were later kind of pulled out because they were troublesome for the software in the future, but much further down the line. Another example of what we did early on was, we set the 1 minute block time because we wanted it to be mined really super fast so that it would mine out quickly. We really wanted the entire money supply of Dogecoin to be mined out within about a year of it launching because we didn't want it to be a serious thing. We wanted it to be seen as like a bit of fun that would eventually kind of peter out. And so we didn't think it was necessary to make it some, deflationary asset that has a 100-year mining schedule like something like Bitcoin or, other alternatives out there. So we were like, let's let them mine the whole thing in a year. And yeah, and the other thing is, we did the 100 billion coins, whereas Bitcoin has 21 million. We made it so there's 100 billion of them. And that was literally inspired by Austin Powers. That was literally inspired by Dr. Evil.
Dr. Evil.
Saying, I want $100 billion. Yeah, so that was Billy's doing because he loves Austin Powers. And so the whole thing was ridiculous, but with the goal of, the other thing we thought with 100 billion was that it would be cool if you could send somebody some ridiculous amount of Dogecoins, like 1,000 Doge, and it's only worth like a penny.
Right.
We thought that would be really cool.
You said fast block times, so 1 minute block times. You put the total number of coins very high, 100 billion, and you set up a parameter that would make that happen fast. And so it's already we've already reached that point, right?
Yeah, we have. So Dogecoin was basically created to be mined out after about a year. And what's funny is that shortly after we released the code, a developer who actually, it was Jay Kwan, who now is the creator of Tendermint and Cosmos, hilariously. But he was back on our GitHub repo, and he was like, hey guys, I found a bug in the code where you guys didn't understand what one of the magic numbers did. And he was right, we didn't. Because we kind of screwed up, and we made it so that once it reached 100 billion, it would continue to give a static block reward every 1 minute of 10,000 Dogecoin.
Which is countered, like there's a max number, you can't go over that.
The max is an arbitrary number, right? You can have over the max. It just keeps getting issued, right? And it gets issued to the miners. So, Jay actually said, look, I don't think you guys should remove this. And I had a lot of conversations with him, and I was like, I think it makes sense, because in the long term, if you do want somebody to keep mining something, or if people are going to keep losing cryptocurrency, like they lost the keys to their wallet, all that's going to do is kind of replenish the stockpile, if you will, of Dogecoin. And like I said, we weren't really considering that it needed to be like a deflationary currency. The reason people like Bitcoin and Litecoin and those things is there's a hard cap, and then everything, after that, it's deflationary. So what that means is that as people buy it, right, there's always going to be less and less of it available because there's a limited supply. In Dogecoin, we have what I like to call deflationary inflation, in that because it's a static block reward of 10,000, in the first year, that equals about 5 billion additional Dogecoin being added, right, in addition to the 100 billion. And but the next year, instead of 5, that percentage is a lower inflation rate, right? So instead of 5%, it's 4.7%.
So explain that, if I'm understanding, that you put a hard cap in there of 100 billion total coins, but the thing that Jake Kwon pointed out was like, no, it's built in there, like that's a cap you put in, but there's another piece of it that's going to keep allowing the creation of more for the miners, and that's causing deflationary.
Yeah. So the way it worked is we thought that the total supply variable would guarantee that it capped at that rate, but we were misinformed as to what it would do. The way that the total cap is actually calculated is it's kind of a calculation of multiple variables. And so we were totally wrong. There is no like hard variable cap that you have in there. And so to undo that bug, it would have been literally like a one-line code change. But we had this, like, if you go and visit the GitHub issue thread, it's like literally one of the longest GitHub issue threads I've ever seen in my life. It's like thousands of comments long. And we eventually decided, you know what, we're going to leave it as a static block reward because people lose coins. And, again, it's not a serious coin. That made a lot of people really angry. There's still a lot of people out there right now. If you search for people adding me on Twitter, the number one thing that people are saying to me is, hey, make Dogecoin deflationary. And the reason they want that is that they know that it'll drive the price up, right? Like Bitcoin's price, because it's a deflationary asset.
So when they say make it deflationary, they mean hard cap the total number of
coins possible. They mean hard cap it.
Yeah.
People hate, people really dislike, well, a certain subset of people really dislike the fact that Dogecoin has inflation, because they say the price will never go up. And I'm like, well, yeah, you're missing the point.
By the way, I love your YouTube videos. I think they're one of the best things for educating people on stuff on proof of work, proof of stake. I watched that one. Even in 2014, when you did the interview with Kevin Rose and the foundation, you talked about how the people telling their friends, hey, buy a Bitcoin just for the investment because you're going to be a millionaire someday. It does not help the utility. Making it inflationary makes it more useful. Is that right?
Yeah, it does. It does, because by removing the deflationary aspect, there isn't a future expectation of profit, right? By removing the fact that it's a scarce resource or asset, the likelihood of in a sane market, right? You got to remember cryptocurrency is in a sane market, but logically the price shouldn't go up for something. It should remain relatively stable if it's inflationary in nature. And that was kind of the thinking, but and it encourages people to spend it, right? Because the thing with Bitcoin is if you get one, you don't want to spend it on anything because there's a good chance the price is going to go up tomorrow. So yeah, that's kind of the direction we were taking it. And after we launched it, what we tried to do is we continued to try and do initiatives and projects that, again, would gravitate the community away from being like, oh, when's this thing going to reach $1? When's this thing going to be worth heaps of money?
Yeah.
And more focus on, making the thing useful.
It's so fascinating. I'm still wondering if like the parameters you set were just sort of lucky, and the actual algorithm of Dogecoin is just a great sort of match for what we need, or did the marketing and the kind of like hilarity and attraction to that, the satire. How do you explain this, man? How do you explain it? It's like you just made this thing, you got a new coin, and it's a real player.
Yeah, look, I think it boils down to like how you measure something's success ultimately. And, a lot of people when they say, how do you feel about Dogecoin being successful? I'm like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
To most people, I know that successful equals market cap and price, right? Like, so the fact that Dogecoin's 1 billion market cap. But I think back then, or, we were naively thinking, success actually means people using the thing as a currency.
Yeah.
Or, maybe if it's just a joke, success is just people getting a laugh out of it and maybe learning something from it.
Can you track the use of Dogecoin? To me, like, it's probably mostly investors.
Yeah, like you can track transactions, transaction volume over time. And like there was a point in time where Dogecoin was processing more transactions than the Bitcoin network, like back in 2014. And that's because we had merchant adoption. Like some people were accepting it for things and you could use it. And then, and people were using it for tipping one another. But, you have to remember, like, as the price of something goes up, right? Like, hypothetically, let's say I see the price of Dogecoin. Say it was at 0.1 of a cent.
Yeah.
And the next day it goes to 0.2 of a cent. And, my friend is like, hey, pay me back for that coffee using Dogecoin. Why would I do that?
If you could, like, take yourself, knowing what you know now in 2018, and go back to this funny moment of you creating Dogecoin and you and your partner setting up the parameters, like, what would you set as the max number of coins?
If I could go back in time, knowing what I know now, to when we did Dogecoin, I'd probably put a self-destruct function in there. But,
What does that mean? Explain that.
I'd probably put a timer in there that says, like, after this many blocks, like, the whole network starts sending random data to one another and corrupts the blockchain or something. Like, I wouldn't wish it upon anybody, because I think the problem is that as a $1 billion market that's fluctuating wildly, people are going to ultimately lose money. And I don't like the idea that I in any way had a hand in that. So that's my kind of take on Dogecoin. And if I could go back in time, I'd warn everybody. But I'd also buy a whole bunch of, like, Ripple or whatever, right? Yeah.
Okay, so that's the thing we've got to cover. Like, okay, so when I met you, I just assumed that you made Dogecoin, so you made a shitload of money. So, and you explained to me that you hadn't really bought in. So talk about that.
Yeah, when we first created Dogecoin and released it, we were in that Google chat, and I didn't have a computer that could mine at the time. I had like a crappy computer that it did have a GPU, but CUDA miner wasn't functional with it or something. It was a mess. So basically, I couldn't mine on my personal machine, and we just released this thing. And so Billy, my co-founder, was like, "Well, look, I've got a gaming rig. I'll mine a little bit, and you can have like half of what I mine." And I was like, "Cool, thanks, man. That's great." Like, it was very humble of him to do that. But after about like 24 to 48 hours, we'd mined like maybe 10 million Doge. He's like, "Hey man, like, we're mining nothing right now. Like, the hash rate has gone up through the roof." And that's because people very quickly started propping up, mining pools around Dogecoin, so they could pool their funds to get their mining power together. Also, a lot of Litecoin miners started pointing their hashing power towards it because it used the same algorithm, right? So if you were a Litecoin miner, you could point, your dedicated rig at this thing and, make a whole bunch of money. So it was just too competitive. And so he and I only came out of it with like 5 million Doge each, which, these days it'd actually be worth a bit of money, but, still not a lot. Like what is that? Like maybe $50,000, I think. But, what we did, in the following months, like Dogecoin actually had like everybody thinks that I was like involved in Dogecoin for multiple years, but, Dogecoin had a very short half-life, for me at least. And within the first 6 months, most of the stuff that happened, right? I think people like to remember it a little bit differently, but, within the first 6 months of Dogecoin releasing, we ran a whole bunch of charity initiatives to try and kind of build awareness around Dogecoin, but also try and help people. Like the first one we ran was we sponsored the Jamaican bobsled team.
Right.
And we sent them to the Sochi Winter Olympics, which was really cool. And then, we did a bunch of other ones. We did one called Doge for Kids, where we trained, guide dogs for blind and autistic children. We did another one that was actually run by Eric Nakagawa, who was the creator of I Can Has Cheeseburger. So there was some nice meme crossover happening. But he ran a charity called Doge for Water, which, donated, I think, $50,000 to Charity Water, which is drilling wells in Kenya. And then there was obviously the NASCAR that happened later on. But, I was involved only in those first three things. And then as soon as I started seeing kind of like people coming in and trying to make money out of Dogecoin, I kind of backed away a little bit. I was kind of like, this is giving me some vibes. Like this is specifically what we agreed it should not become when it first started out. And so, by about the year mark, by the end of 2014, I was pretty much out of Dogecoin.
And what coins did you own?
Oh, so I gave away all of that 5 million Doge to charities. So I didn't have really anything. I think I had one Bitcoin, and that was it, right? So come the end of 2014, I basically had no Dogecoin. I had like one Bitcoin sitting around, and then I kind of said peace out to like cryptocurrency. And I wasn't involved in cryptocurrency very much through 2015 and 2016. I was kind of like, I was doing other things. Like I was looking into other decentralized kind of peer-to-peer things and not focusing on Bitcoin.
So I mean, I gotta think there's been nights you've had where you think like, shit, I could put,
I could have been a millionaire if I just, I get it. Yeah. There has been, I don't think Dogecoin would have been what it became if it had been pre-mined. I think it was kind of a big no-no back then to do a pre-mine, and people would have been like, this guy is on one hand trying to make a joke, but on the other hand trying to make money out of it. That smells, right? So no, like I wouldn't, if I went back, I wouldn't honestly change that. I think there are things in life more important than money. One of the most important is to remain humble. And I think had I gotten as crazily rich as like a lot of my peers did, I think I probably would have lost some of that humbleness or my feet would have left the ground a little bit too much for my liking. Yeah.
I mean, to me, you hold a space because you did what you did with integrity of like, we're launching this coin and we're not going to own it. And it's sort of like an experiment / kind of a commentary.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, in like the foundation interview with Kevin Rose, like I heard your expression of like, there is still a value for Dogecoin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing you say that the Dogecoin value right now is not helping contribute to its utility. What's your take on Dogecoin?
That's a loaded question. Yeah, so my take on Dogecoin is that I think after the initial spike, it kind of gradually declined back down in 2015, 2016, which I expected. Like, that's what I expected because merchant adoption dried up. In late 2014, we had a huge scammer come in and kind of decimate the Dogecoin community. This person called Moolah, Alex Green / Ryan Kennedy. They were using a fake name. They came in and they defrauded the community for a whole amount of money. But in the process, there was kind of like a war between me trying to call out the people, the scammers, and then the scammers supporters calling out me. And so it was a whole mess. And so when that ended.
Was he ever caught?
Yeah. So,
really?
Oh my gosh. So what happened was, I can tell you about Moolah. So there was this, as we were doing all these charity drives, right? The Doge sled and all of that. We started hearing about this person called Moolah, which was a kind of up and coming kind of payments company, kind of like think of it as Shopify for Dogecoin, but also for some other cryptocurrencies. And it was headed by this mysterious person called Alex Green. who kind of never showed their face. We couldn't find any information online about them, but they were very active in kind of like forums and stuff like that. And they started like hiring up community members of the Dogecoin community, like prominent, moderators and things like that, which is always a little bit weird when a company hires moderators of a forum, especially Reddit. But then they started doing this thing called Moolah Pi, which was actually kind of like a precursor to the ICO, in which they asked everybody to donate around $750,000 worth of cryptocurrency at the time. Now that's worth mega millions of dollars, right? Yeah. And so people, the community, mostly Dogecoin, put all their money into this thing, thinking they were investing in a company.
They're trusting this guy.
They were trusting him. Yeah, they were completely trusting him. And because they bought several of the prominent community members, they also trusted him because they were like, oh, if these guys think he's fine, but he was just paying them. And so people put a lot of money in, and then he started paying them back dividends, which I'm like, okay, this is a classic Ponzi. He's paying them back their own money, right? And so myself and Ben Dornberg, who I was telling you about earlier, started calling this out. We're like, look, guys, this seems a bit fishy. This guy went on to send heaps of like free money to people. He would like tip people on Reddit, huge amounts of money, like, $1,000 and stuff like that.
Using which coins? Was he using Dogecoin or was he using all kinds of coins?
Using Dogecoin. And, I was thinking, oh my gosh, this guy is like paying for things with this investment money that he's taken, right? He's paying people back their own money. This all culminated when Moolah actually were the ones that primarily ran and sponsored the Doge NASCAR, right? And so this is why I don't like to talk about the Doge NASCAR a lot, because I wasn't involved. They were the ones that collected the money. They were the ones that, And
this is the same guy planning this whole move.
Exactly. Yeah, this guy is planning this long con of like how to get away with a whole bunch of money. He's come in, he's stolen the community away from me and the other people and turned it into this thing. And also, he's getting like, obviously he's trying to get the Moolah logo all over, the Doge car, the NASCAR and everything. So it's a lot of publicity, right? So that he can raise a lot more money. So he continues to do this for a while, and eventually there was a lot of heated debates where, he was basically saying, oh, you guys, Jackson and Ben, you're slandering Moolah. This is, whenever a criminal is afraid, they come back and they say it's libel or slander, right? It's a classic case. And so
it's very familiar this last year.
Yeah. So we got to a point where Ben and I kind of said, you know what, we're wiping our hands of it. We don't want to be involved. And the problem was that because he was giving all this money to the community, we had like the entire Dogecoin community against me. They kind of hated me. Like, if you go back on Reddit and look at my history or look at the Dogecoin history, you'll see a lot of people just saying, leave Dogecoin. We don't want you anymore, Jackson. We just like Moolah.
I have to ask, man, how does that feel? To have a community turn against you, you can't totally be immune to some emotional...
Oh, no. Yeah.
It sucks. That's gotta feel shitty, right?
Oh, I wasn't immune to it at all. Yeah, like, I was kind of actively saying to these guys, look, I'm not going to feel sorry for you when you lose all your money. And, I do feel sorry for them because they didn't know any better.
Were you bitter about the whole thing? Like, oh man.
I wasn't bitter because here's the thing. Like, Ben and I were pretty damn sure that this guy was a scammer. And so like we knew it wasn't a matter of if for us. It was more a matter of when. I would have felt worse if I'd not put in the effort to try and warn people when it all blew up, right? Like I would feel terrible if I'd never tried to call it out because I was afraid. And so like I didn't really feel bitter so much as I did like it's when you're trying to argue with somebody who just doesn't know any better, and it just became a point where I'm like, look guys, like I have no benefit. There's nothing for me to gain, and there's nothing for you to gain apparently because you're not going to listen to me by me staying around. And so I kind of backed off for a few months, and Moolah kind of ran the community. They had some of the moderators paid on their payroll, and they kind of ran the community, which was mostly centered around Reddit. And so, but then what happened was, one day, so flash forward 2 months after the Doge car thing, and Ben and I are kind of like, okay, we can't do any more. We'd forgotten about it almost. Like we were still following Dogecoin, but not very involved. And Moolah kind of out of nowhere announces that they're filing for bankruptcy.
Oh, Jesus.
And they'd also, during this period, they'd also bought an exchange called MintPal, which was a big failed exchange. But so Mullah, they're filed for bankruptcy, and this actually goes up on TechCrunch.com. So there's an article on TechCrunch.com saying Mullah, big cryptocurrency company, files for bankruptcy. Now,
did that include mention of Dogecoin?
Oh, it did, yeah. And it also included mention of Alex Green, right? But here's the thing. What happened is because, back when we were getting shouted out of the community, Ben and I had done a Skype interview with this guy, Alex Green. And thankfully, somebody, I'm not going to name names, but you can guess who it was. It wasn't me, but recorded that Skype chat because we're never going to get this guy's face again, right?
You saw his face. You talked to him.
We saw his face. And it was him and his COO were on this video is on YouTube. Go and look up Mullah Skype interview. So we're sitting on Skype and these guys are vaping these huge vape pens. It was so ridiculous. You can watch the thing on YouTube with Ben and I, and we're like, we think you're a scammer. We think you're a scammer. I was trying to be a mediator because Ben was getting pretty aggressive, but I understand why. Anyway, so what TechCrunch had done for the big banner image on their article is they somehow found a copy of this video and they put a screenshot of the guy's face in the TechCrunch article.
Yeah.
And so this was the first time this Alex Green, this mysterious Alex Green's face was out there. So this article airs, and then I get a mysterious email that's his name isn't Alex Green, it's actually Ryan Kennedy. Uh-huh. And it links me over to this Encyclopedia Dramatica thing with a huge article about this guy called Ryan Kennedy from the UK who's been scamming people for, the last 10 or 15 years and how he's drugged women and all of this stuff.
Oh my God.
And I look at the pictures and I'm like, that's him. That's just a younger him. And so I'm like, oh my God. And so I call up Ben and I'm like, we've got him. We've got everything on this guy. And this person also sent me through a whole bunch of stuff. They sent me through copies of his driver's license, a million pictures of him with ex-girlfriends and stuff like that. Because apparently this wasn't the first time he'd been caught. The last time he got caught, the police confiscated his laptop and then he never collected it back. So the police gave it to these other people who then gave it to me. And, or gave me the files of it, I should say. So anyway, Ben and I post this big statement toward the end of 2014 just saying Alex Green Mullah is actually Ryan Kennedy. He's a scammer.
Yeah.
And we post all of this information, and everybody's like, oh my God, we'll have to, sue him for all the money because he ran off with the MintPal money as well, which is $1.5 million. So he ran off with a lot of money.
Wow.
Anyway. Well, so yeah, it wasn't really a campaign. It was just something I posted and then said, look, this is all I'm going to say on the matter, but here you go. Because I didn't want to be I told you so. I didn't want to try and rub it in.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
There were some people on the forums that were Ben and Jackson warned us. They told us. But there are other people who were no, I don't believe it. This is a hit piece. I'm okay, whatever. His face is literally there. But after that point, I really didn't feel the need to kind of come back to the Dogecoin community because there was a lot of people showed their true colors during that whole kind of fiasco. And for me,
right.
A community that I once thought was extremely pure were kind of proven to have, I saw a dark side of that, and I felt that, I feel seeing that brought out the worst side of me as well, trying to go and argue with them. And I was I don't need that. And that being said, I think the people in the Dogecoin community that have stayed around are the good ones. And I think they're a really good community, But yeah, anyway, flash forward 2 years, right? So after this all happened, he disappeared. Nobody knew where he was. Flash forward 2 years, and I think it was late 2016. I see an article, somebody's posted, Ryan Kennedy in the UK is arrested and sentenced to 11 years in prison, not for fraud, but for
Google alerts.
No, somebody who'd been there was a bunch of people that were monitoring this thing, so they would send me links and stuff. So somebody sent me this link. He'd been arrested and put to jail for many years.
Oh my God.
For serial rape.
Oh Jesus.
He serial rapist in the UK, and sexual abuser. And so we were just holy, that's crazy. Not only is the guy a scam artist, he's just a downright despicable human being.
He made his move purely on social channels. He never touched the code. Mm-hmm. He just did a marketing play that was across Reddit and a long-term play.
No, he never hacked. Like it was really a case of social engineering. Like I think he did have very basic like web development skills, and so I think he like there was a functioning product, but it was like extremely basic, and like everybody would complain about how buggy it was. So I think he slapped something together as like a prototype, and then through hype and essentially like a Ponzi scheme, like reinvesting funds and stuff like that, he kind of sold the whole thing.
Do you think the lessons you learned from that experience, like, did that apply to what's happening today?
Of course it did. Yeah, I think it actually puts me in like a very, like, I think a lot of people that are getting into crypto now don't have any idea or notion that would have ever happened, right? And I think for me and say Ben and other people that lived through that, we kind of have a more skeptical take on the world, and we know that when there's this exuberant, excited community that are flush with cash and like coming into something new like this, it just becomes like a massive target for people like that, sociopaths who are going to come in and abuse their trust and take all their money. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. There's like a new scam ICO every day, right? Like, I think it's too early. Like, I think that's the thing. This guy had like a year when he across the time, like the time span for his scam, right? So, we might not find out that many of these ICOs are scams until sometime in the next 6 months or a year. What'll end up happening is we'll see that they won't have delivered any product. Ultimately,
what do you think are the most interesting elements? Like, if we're going to tell the story of Dogecoin and then put it in the context of like now, like, what do you think are the best questions?
I think some of the best questions are honestly what we've just been discussing. I think the like we can talk a lot about, and I've talked a lot about like, how Dogecoin did this right or how it did that right.
The fact that you picked using Dr. Evil, like it's so funny because like the purity of the presence of the brand, that and the integrity of like both of you guys just being like, we're not going to have a stake in this. That I think creates this pure experiment. It's so meta. It's a fucking meme in the beginning.
It does, but
and that's huge.
What I think's so interesting about it is like I just think that the way that this stupid like dog on a coin can like then lead back to like talking about things like financial systems, capitalism. Like I think that's like it. If anything, I think it's a useful tool to get people into thinking about those things through a relatively harmless and funny kind of meme.
All right, man.
Okay, cool. Well, just let me know if you need anything else, but yeah.
Coloring Crypto.
Okay, there's a video that's like 300,000 views.
Is it D is for Dogecoin?
It's so weird.
Is it the one where it's in the rocket ship? And
yeah, totally. Like, who the fuck did that?
We had a competition, and that was the one that won. No, they just wanted the reward.
Yeah.
Which was like the reward was only like a few $100, but yeah.